send us those parts back to get that one up and going. South K and 92, right now, that's the, from my understanding, the project will be for sure K and 92 intersection. With going south, we shouldn't have to remove any poles along from South K 92 down to the dog park. But we did receive the drawings for that on Wednesday, this last Wednesday. Sent those off to our engineer. I did meet with our engineer this morning. Went over those, the drawings and kind of the layout of what we do, material, what we would need. He does have a bid opening on Wednesday of this week, so we'll have maybe a little better idea on material lead times off of that bid opening. I can tell you I did speak with one of our vendors this afternoon, and I'm not for sure if the lead times are worse than what I even thought. So, like, really bad.
So why? What materials are so difficult in the supply chain?
It's just supply chain. It's totally out of their hands. It's all up in the manufacturers.
I thought that was supposed to be getting better.
I wish. Yeah.
So I do have a couple of questions about just kind of the work from our engineer based on what was given to us from the city. Do we have any special, since it's a state highway, and I assume the grant is coming from the state?
Yeah.
Are there any special requirements that we're required to address with it being state versus city?
I don't believe so. I mean, it's definitely something we can talk to Dave. We got a meeting set up, or I think we got word back from mostly everybody. I didn't get the invite sent out, as we found out late this afternoon, but Thursday, I believe, Thursday morning, we're going to meet with city staff and Snyder and Associates.
I think it would just be worth asking the question.
Yep. Most of the time, as long as we're doing the project ourselves, outside of, and we're not receiving any funding, we shouldn't have any special requirements on our part.
But we may not be receiving funding. The city is. Aren't they getting a grant for the intersection?
For that grant, yeah, but for the portion of our work, we won't be receiving anything, so I don't think we'll have any special requirements on our part. The only thing I will say is the street lighting, that'll have to be replaced down through there. It'll have to be like a breakaway. That's a state requirement, but that's not any different if there's grant funding or not.
And the city will cover that too. That's not ours?
Yes, because it's their project. So that's one of the other things we'll talk about on Thursday as well. We got an idea of how many street lights it'll take now. And,
so I don't know that this is the right time to ask this question. I was surprised to see Ben's message on Thursday asking for us to make him purchase of materials without having more information. So I assume you guys have had more contact and more information than us along the way, because that to me is a pretty significant move without having board discussion, your discussion, city approval. I still don't think city's approved it.
It's not officially. I mean, there hasn't been a vote to my knowledge that the project would 100% go through. However, they got direction from the council that the project, this part of the project, would go through with funding, but there's still, we don't have 100%.
How many times has K Street changed?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm just, I'm concerned is what I am.
Sure. Yeah, as well as me. I mean, just for instance, the cable that we need, the high voltage cable, is $125,000 minimum for this project for us, just for the high voltage cable. And I mean, at $20-some a foot, we want to be right when we order it.
Or as close to right as we can be. And
right.
There'll always be something that could come up.
Right. And it's one of those that's extremely long lead time right now. Like, what the vendors are.
It's on what?
The lead time. The lead times are what they're telling me. There's no way it's not, we want to help and we don't want to hold the project up, but this is kind of going to be out of our hands as far as if we can't get the materials, we can't do the project.
So how much worse than what you thought?
Right now, the wire, they're talking to us in March of 2025.
And that's putting an order in before you're in?
Yeah.
I mean, sensibly, if we ordered it today.
Yeah, if I ordered it today.
Is
We're
the city
almost
aware of
here.
that?
I just found out literally 10 minutes before I got in. It's one of the reasons I didn't get the emails or for the meeting that's sent out. But, you know, I'm talking with the vendors that one thing that we're going to do is try and work and see if there's other utilities, other projects that are maybe on hold that we have access to try and buy the wire from them. You know, we'll do what we can to try and continue moving forward. The good thing is this stuff is definitely things that we use on a day-to-day basis. It's stuff that we bring into stock. So, you know, we can have that stuff.
So you have your meeting with Snyder on Thursday?
I believe so. It's not set in stone because
Okay.
I need to send the request out, but I'm hopeful that Thursday we'll sit down and have another discussion to
Do you think you
bring
and
them up
Chris
to speed.
could send an update to the board after that conversation, so we at least have a sense
Sure.
of where things are landing?
Yep.
I just feel a little bit out of the loop on some of it, and some of it's moving so quickly, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
Okay.
definitely moving. We're trying to move as quickly as we can.
And I appreciate that. I'm not trying to hold up the project
Yeah.
either. I just want to make sure that we're being wise.
100%, 100%.
Oh, and I appreciate, I mean, I did have an opportunity to watch the council meeting, and I sensed a bit of misunderstanding. It's like if I have a contractor come over to my house and I want to do something in my own mind, I've got this all figured out, and then they come over and they say, well, but did you think about this? And we have to get one of those and 6 of these. And I think there's an oversimplification of the process based on what I saw and a lack of understanding of, you know, what we have to do. And the thing that I appreciate that you specifically said, Mike, is it's not for a lack of our not wanting to help. And I just want to make sure
Right,
that
And-
that is heard.
Right. I agree.
Because
Agreed.
it's not for a lack of willingness, but if we physically do not have materials, I don't care at what cost it is, if they're not available, they're not available.
And I actually talked to John Parker, because I couldn't get a hold of Ben after the message he sent, and just wanted to make sure we conveyed, we want to be able to help, but we also need to make sure that we understand what's required, and that a decision's been made. And John understood when I talked to him, and he said he would carry our concern forward.
Did you watch the meeting?
I did not, but Deb was there, and she and I
I would
talked.
tell you that was not carried forward. In my opinion,
What was it carried forward?
the message that he understood what
We were
Lori
trying to
had
not
said,
slow him
yeah.
down.
There wasn't any.
Kind of like we
What
knew
I'm
about
fearful
it.
of is, yes,
Yeah.
and
That's what I was concerned about to start with,
Yeah.
and so,
I have another question though, and it's not really about that, it's more about budget. So, if we go through this, and I understand that part of it, even if we would get the material, and we don't necessarily end up using it for some reason, that it can go back into our just other projects. I understand that. But my question is, for the two projects, the 92 project and the streetscape project that we'll be working on, and now the streetscape, is that this year's current budget that will have to be paid out of capital projects, or is that 24?
Both.
So my question, I don't know, either Chris or whoever, but how much will have to come out of our capital project just for those two city projects? And then what does that leave us for our projects, for capital projects?
Some of that depends on timing. I mean, we do have dollars, and I don't have those top of mind, what exactly the budget for streetscape is and what we've spent. But as far as the timing on where it'll need to go, that largely depends on when it shows up and when we need to pay for it. You know, those capital budgets and the budgets that we pass are more cash basis, you know, and the timing depends on when we need to cut the check. So
you couldn't give us even a ballpark figure of any sort?
I don't mean to interrupt here, but aren't we reviewing capital projects in the budget, like in early December? Or?
Yep, December 11th.
I would suggest that I think that's a very good question. I suggest we wait until
Okay,
that
better.
time to talk through that when they have the numbers.
Yeah, and we'll.
And that's my concern, that what happens to our projects then?
Well, I think they're gonna be the same.
Okay.
They're not gonna have any money.
So when we have that conversation
Yeah.
in December, we'll bring those discussions up. Okay. Sorry, Mike. Anything you want to finish up
No,
with?
that
Oh,
covered
I'm sorry, I
everything.
didn't mean to cut.
Nope, you're good.
All right.
So where do you think we are on that turbine 7 then, Mike? I know are you hopeful that we'll have things figured out here in the next week or so? Or?
I mean, if we can't track it down ourselves, then we're gonna have to bring a third source in to try and help track down that leak where it's at. But we discussed again this afternoon with the crew that some other options to try and track this down. The problem is where this leak is at is down in what we call the belly of the turbine, which is very tight, and there's not a whole lot of room to move around down in there. And we've got an idea that it could be maybe this one pipe, but we've got to get it pressurized to make sure, because we're definitely going to have to bring somebody in to redo this pipe. It's going to take a steam fitter, pipe and steam fitter type person to come in and do that, and then the amount of other stuff that we got to disassemble. What's that?
A skinny pipe and steam fitter.
So, yeah, I'm hopeful we'll have more information by the end of the week.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Justin, water utility informational items?
Well, I can't compete with Mike.
You don't want to.
Right? I don't have a whole lot. Streetscape for the water side is complete. We do have a block, the Streetscape Southeast that we're doing that was outside of the scope of the Streetscape project. So been working with the engineer, hopefully have those drawings finalized by end of December, present them, and then get those out for bids for a spring start. And then other than that, kind of just winter operations and plant maintenance and
Good. How did the cutover time go with the businesses on the square? Did that go well?
yeah, it went really well. Yep.
Good.
I think they were off a little bit longer this time because we had to shut the main down to tie it into the new main, but I think 2 hours at most. But they started right at 8 o'clock, and most of those businesses don't open till 10, so
Good.
it really wasn't any impact to them.
Good.
The expansion of the streetscape, that was what happened that is taking place.
The Streetscape Southeast, so it's back behind, be like Krause's and stuff there, east of Howard Street, and that was out of the scope of the project. So to eliminate an old stretch of main in there, it was proposed to replace it and feed, I think there's 4 or 5 businesses that need to be fed. So it was so the streetscape, they made it capable for us to just tie on to the new main and then go across the street. But at the time, it was out of the scope of the project, so.
Yeah, just by its location, it was out of the,
There.
And does that affect anybody other than you, Justin?
No, because I think Mike's already through there with his electric, so it would just be just the water side.
Okay. Other questions for Justin?
Do we have any concrete left to pour anywhere?
Yes. Just,
Well, I was more like any of the pipes that busted on streets or all those
knock on
taken
wood,
care
since
of?
our last meeting has been quiet, so.
I wasn't going to ask.
Well, I'm not talking about like new ones, but the existing ones that were out there that we were waiting to pour, those have all been taken care of and everything. I'm just thinking when snow comes,
What
plows
weather?
and
Yep,
everything.
all those have been taken care of. We do, that one that we had 2 weeks ago on Monday, that's our only one that's, still needs poured back, but we're gonna try and get that, work on it tomorrow, hopefully pour it back on Wednesday when temps come up a little bit, so.
Perfect.
Good. Kurt, communication utility items.
Yep, Pella route, we're waiting on just a few more final punch list items. They're having some issues getting the locates to work east of Knoxville, so everything on our side is working okay, but they had a couple areas that they're having issues with, so engineers and Kramer are hopefully getting over there tomorrow or Wednesday to finish that off, so hopefully we'll get sign off yet, but still this week, so, but creeping our way to the finish on that one, so. The NOFA 7 section to the north, Butch is making really good progress on that. We've got one test station to do up there in splicing, and then that will be done. So that'll work out well. We promised the OCIO we'd have that done by December 31st, so we should be able to make that without any problem. So then he's also making good progress on the south portion as well. He's got most of 113th place and Lucas Place completed, so that'll be good. So we should be able to offer services to those folks along there this spring. And we'll see how much farther. Again, if it warms up in December, I think he'll continue to work. So we'll see how much progress he makes. So
I can't remember if we really contacted those residents to say we could offer services.
to the north, yes.
Okay.
Not to the south.
To the south.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. Yep. Matter of fact, we have quite a few of ones to the north hooked up. So our customers. So. Field tech position's been posted, and we've received resumes, so that's good. So we'll let that sit out there for another week or so, and then we'll start reviewing them. Then other than that, yeah, working on budget. We're also into winter prep stuff and just normal year-end sort of stuff. So.
Is there a deadline on the south project?
It is. It's
Not the same as the north, though.
2026, I believe.
Oh, so we've got time.
Yeah, we've got
to
time.
get that.
There'll be 2 more phases on that to go. So yeah.
Other questions for Chris? Okay, moving ahead to combined electric, water, and communication items. Anything, Chris, to introduce Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I got a few things to say, but we'll first turn it over to Robert, and he will present our fiscal year 23 financial audit.
Welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, my name is Robert Enders. I think most of us have been through this before, but I'm here to present the audit for fiscal year 2023. Devin was engaged to perform this audit. I think we were on site early September, perchance. And we do have the audit report to go through with us tonight. It's a thick document. It's a fun read. I do encourage you to take some time.
It is a fun read.
Maybe with a strong cup of coffee. But we're going to throw it through a PowerPoint here tonight. Try to make this maybe a 5 or 10 minute conversation rather than a 2-hour read. We're not going to get through everything. So we're going to take some high level topics instead of getting into that document. There's some reading information in there. So we'll go over our independent audit report. We'll take a quick look at the summarized financial records. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about internal controls and compliance, and then finish up with a quick conversation on just some other government communications. Beginning with that independent audit report, which you can find on, I think, it's page 4 of the thick document. Just a couple of reminders with that report. First, the financial statements we're about to look at are management financial statements. So management is responsible for ensuring that they're complete, that they're accurate, that they conform with accounting standards, and that internal controls are in place internally to support the accuracy of the financial statements. Our responsibility as the auditors for IMU is to perform an audit and to express an opinion on whether or not management financial statements are accurate. So for us to do that, we first start by assessing the risk to management financial statements, which transactions with balances present a higher risk of a misstatement. And then we're going to develop audit strategies to help mitigate those risks. Those risks might include things like management override of control, which is a risk that all audits have to incorporate into their audit procedures. Revenue recognition is always a higher risk area. Then transactions that might be unusual or irregular or require management estimates. Those are higher risk transactions and balances that we're going to investigate a little bit further. Those audit strategies that we're going to implement might include looking at supporting documentation, independently confirming accounts and balances, analyticals, inquiries, and generally just being a real nuisance to Chris and Chris for a better part of the week as we gain that audit evidence. We are issuing what we call unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance that our profession can provide regarding the accuracy of the financial statements. So that is the opinion we're hoping to get, and certainly we do have it. A quick look here at the statement of net position or the balance sheet as of June 30, 2023. At the prior year there to compare to total assets, $81.6 million, up about $5.5 million for the prior period. Most of that growth in cash, which is consistent with what you were just talking about there, many of those capital projects that are coming down the pipeline. Since IMU does self-fund many of its capital projects, you have to build those cash reserves and then you spend those cash reserves. So 2023 was a year of building, and it sure sounds like 24 and 25 are going to be years of spending. Second half of the balance sheet there, you have liabilities, very, very stable year over year, sitting just shy of $22 million, leaving us with a net position at year end of just short of $60 million. Of that $60 million, overwhelming majority of it, call it about 2/3 is the net investment in capital assets, so obviously that's very illiquid. But the unrestricted net position, just north of $20 million, would be those net resources that the utilities has at its disposal to execute its operating missions. Here we have the income statement. For June 30, 2023, $25.7 million total revenues, up about $2 million from the prior period. That growth is driven in large part by fiber, which saw something like a 20% increase in revenues year over year. Electric had a more modest growth rate there as well. Operating expenses, just a shade over $20 million. Again, that growth of about $500,000. Fiber is the biggest driver there as well. Leaving us with a change in net position in totality of $5.3 million to the good. Of that, about $800,000, just because I know this is something that the trustees have been keeping a close eye on, $800,000 that is in fiber, so fiber is in the black. It's been in the black for a couple of years now. It still has a deficit net position of about $2.4 million. That was very intentional. That's how the fiber utility was built. But we are on track to be out of that deficit in 3 to 4 years at the current rate. Now, jumping way back to the back of the audit report, we do spend a little bit of time here talking about internal controls and compliance. So as part of a financial statement audit, we do not express an opinion on internal controls, but we do have a responsibility during the course of our audit work to gain an understanding of the broad control concepts and practices that the utilities are using. That understanding helps us develop better audit strategies as we go. But it doesn't give us enough information to necessarily express an opinion. However, if we do identify deficiencies or areas for improvement in internal controls, we have a responsibility to vet those and then elevate them to the board if warranted. I'm happy to say we do not have any deficiencies in internal control that were identified during the course of our audit work. Finally, the state does ask us to look also at some compliance requirements from the Code of Iowa and other state regulations and test to see if utilities is compliant with those requirements. And we did not identify any deficiencies or non-compliance this year as well. So the only comment that is in the report, and that's because the state asked us to have it there, is regarding the deficit balance of the utility fund. And again, that's going to work its way out over the next couple of years. And it's very, very intentional. So, last slide here. Along with the audit report, or with every audit we issue, our profession issues, we also issue what we call a governance letter. That governance letter is an opportunity for us to communicate directly to you as members of governance about matters that we think warrant your attention. So effectively, it's our dirty laundry list. So things that we have that really warrant your attention. I'm happy to say it's a very boring letter, and we always like issuing boring governance letters. But I always encourage boards and members of council to start with that letter, because it is where we're going to reflect any concerns or questions we have. But the most important things I'd probably say throughout any of these documents is that fourth bullet point there, and the fifth one right after it. No disagreements with management, no issues encountered during the performance of the audit. I do want to thank Chris and the rest of the IMU team. We are admittedly a bit of a nuisance, I know that. We do interfere with their day-to-day routine. We're very grateful for the efforts and work they do to make our job as easy as possible. Can I answer any questions regarding the audit, our work, or anything else for me to know?
Robert, in the past, you've issued a management letter, some different term that you guys probably use now for that.
Yes.
We've kind of had a history of having quite a few on that and dropping down. And am I interpreting correctly that there really isn't any this year?
Right. So we do not have any recommendations that would rise to the level of warranting governance's attention. Effectively, is kind of the terminology we use. So during the course of the audit work, we're going to have recommendations for staff. Hopefully, most of them are good ones. But they don't necessarily rise to the level of the governance communication. So we did have a couple other recommendations for staff this year that they're working through, but none that really hit the point where it warranted communication at this level.
That's outstanding.
Yes, and frankly, if you had told me 3 years ago that we'd be at this point, I wouldn't have believed you. And staff have gone very quickly through our punch list, and I'm really quite surprised and impressed with how quickly those things have been addressed.
Great to hear.
Good job. Good job.
Great job.
Way to go.
Thank you to
I
everybody.
agree, because you and I might have been the only ones around here at that time when we got not great news, and this is much more fun.
I agree.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Robert, I do have a question on, you mentioned the state has the requirement of us recognizing the deficit for fiber. Do we have to be more specific in timing on when we'll meet that commitment? You said in the next few years.
No, it's not a requirement that it's simply the state wants us to acknowledge in this public document that the fiber utility has a deficit balance. So
Okay.
it's just an area in the report to make it a little bit more obvious to the reader, the financial, and say, hey, we do have a deficit balance here.
Okay.
And in that acknowledgement, staff do have a response there, which says something, I'm paraphrasing here, something along the lines of this was intentional, it's going to go away. So it is just more of an opportunity to make it publicly available that the fund balance is indeed deficit, in the deficit
Okay.
position.
So there won't be anything that comes back and said, oh, you hit it in 26, not
No.
25, or you hit it in 25, not 26.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, our business plan, all along have indicated this position. I don't think we'll take anywhere near where the business plan, indicated that. Like, right now, we're kind of, 2 years, 3 years, possibly 4.
And I remember that, I just, when Robert mentioned that the state required it, I didn't know if it was a requirement to be specific, so. We're on good track. Good business. Other questions for Robert? Thank you for
Robert.
being annoying to our, to our staff and
course.
getting through it. It's been a great report, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, I got a couple more updates.
Before we jump on to that, I do want to add my thank you to you guys, that I know you worked hard to get ready for his visit, and so thank you for all the work you did with that. Everybody pitches in.
And for him to
so-
say that he didn't think it could be done is amazing. It really is. I mean, so kudos.
Congratulations. I'll first start off saying, congratulations, Chris. I know she's worked hard, and, the last bit of capital assets was a push at the end, but I think we're in a good place and appreciate all the efforts there. As far as updates for the board, last week, 2 weeks ago now, I guess, the MEAN contract, the Modified Service Schedule M contract, was approved. They expect to be mailing those out sometime between January and March. My plan is to have the attorney that worked on that kind of address you guys prior to signing that. We'll see when that officially hits our door, the inked documents. So expect to be seeing that on an upcoming agenda. We are in the middle of budget work. December 11th, our next meeting. We will be reviewing our draft capital plan. So keep all that in mind. Mike and I have a meeting Thursday morning on K Street, and that's obviously our kind of fastest moving project right now with attention. And finally, the service plan. I do have the draft back from our attorney that we talked about a couple of months ago. I expect to get a couple more questions for them. If we can get everything resolved, we'll put that on the December 11th meeting as well. Everything being December 11th, because my intent or suggestion with your feedback would be we traditionally cancel the second meeting in December.
It's Christmas Day.
Well,
We need to
I'm
reschedule.
probably not going to be here. I'll go on the limb.
Well, if there's coal in your
I got nothing else.
So with your concurrence or thought, or without hearing any loud objections, we plan on canceling that meeting on the 27th.
Let's hold it tentative until we get through the next discussion to see if we need to do something, but I would agree, if we can, let's do. You visited Mean since we last met, right?
Yep.
And I thought I saw or heard that Mean decided to raise rates.
They haven't yet. We're reviewing some of their preliminary budget items. From all their hints and indications are that there's going to be, some movement there. We spent a lot of time reviewing the cost pressures, so I would expect to see a increase in our costs, but, they haven't announced or discussed anything specifically.
So hold tight. I just thought that was a change to what we had kind of been thinking, so I wasn't sure how that would impact us, or what we would need to start thinking about
Do you know
in
when they'll
response to it.
be contacting us about what
We
their
will,
plan is?
so we'll have a couple of more meetings in December, and the official budget for April 1st would be voted on the third week in January. So we won't know any kind of official numbers until then, but, as time progresses, we'll get a little more clear picture.
Would they be effective in the 24-25 budget season, or would they hold that?
Typically,
time?
yeah, typically they've made all those rate changes or cost increases effective on their fiscal year, which is April 1st.
Oh, theirs is April 1st.
Yeah, so, if history is any indication, if there's any needed movement, it'll be effective April 1st, but we'll know.
Of next year?
Correct, yeah, of 24. And we'll know more in December and should have an official number at the end of January.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask if there were other questions for us.
I have a question. Whatever happened with Redeemer Lutheran Church?
The last contact I had, I met with one of their trustees, reviewed our information. They had a couple of questions that came out of that. I answered those, and we haven't heard any follow-up or feedback after that. We got them a couple of questions that came out of that meeting.
So have they paid the bill?
They paid the bill all along.
Oh.
It was never a non-payment issue.
So we're just assuming that it's all good then?
I haven't had any feedback to this point.
Other topics or questions for Chris?
Anything else come out of the meeting then?
Just it was a lot of industry information, kind of some of the, I talked a little bit, a lot of negative information and negative to the extent of a lot of cost pressures in the industry. Certainly right now, a couple of years ago, the cost pressures were, resource, natural gas and the like. Those are all heavily reduced, and actual production costs are reduced. But across the industry with parts and components, and they're seeing a lot in labor increases just across that utility industry. So none of those are anything necessarily to be excited about, but we don't know how that will actually affect us. We're working through our budgets and our own needs, and we'll incorporate those rates when we get them specifically.
Any discussions with other communities possibly, or as far as solar? I would assume that we're supposed to probably a little disappointed that things are.
Yeah, we did get update on the solar, and I will say that it's again more negative news. They're still expecting now kind of pushing us back to third quarter, and a lot of that has to do with the USDA and PACE programs. They haven't the financing was largely surrounding governmental programs. They were one of the first applicants, and nobody's got any, those have been floating out for a long time for review and signature and approval, and they haven't got those yet.
So you're talking third quarter next year?
Yep. They're still expecting a December 31st completion date. But they bought some equipment, but so much of it was financed or the financing surrounding the USDA that hasn't approved any of the programs.
So what if it doesn't get passed?
we talked about a couple of, backstop. It's obviously not good and doesn't, mean stuff will move forward faster. There's a couple of options, different equipment, a little less efficient equipment. I think there's a path still to do that if that USDA stuff falls through. But right now, the USDA is sitting on a lot of money, and the PACE program specifically is sitting on it. They just haven't signed off on anybody's project yet, and so there is quite a line, and they're definitely at the very first batch of that, but nobody's got approval yet.
State or federal?
Federal.
With Vilsack being the Ag Secretary, is there, can IAMU and/or me go together and reach out on that program? Seems like we've got some connections there.
I hadn't suggested anything, but certainly can follow up with them. They're as anxious as anybody to get going on that.
Other topics for Chris? If not, I would take a first and second motion to enter into closed session.
So moved.
I need to read the whole thing. In accordance with Iowa Code Section 388.9, to discuss marketing and pricing strategies and proprietary information of the telecoms division whose competitive position will be harmed by public disclosure that is not required of potential or actual competitors, and no public